You know, it's interesting when we lose an icon like Dame Maggie Smith, you almost get kind of caught up in this like whirlwind of the familiar, right? The movie clips, here's her greatest hits, and
Right.
yet her career was so much more than a highlight reel, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like what's really fascinating to me is, she was this beloved figure in these massive, massive franchises like Harry Potter.
Of course.
But decades before she was putting on those robes, she was this powerhouse.
Right.
On stage. Like, this was a woman who commanded the stage.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of want to dig into a little bit, because I think a lot of people maybe aren't as familiar with that part of her career. So we're going to dive into all these different news sources, some early fan reactions, because honestly, a legend like this deserves more than just like your typical, here's what she did.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's actually go all the way back, because several of these sources touch on her early life, and it's not what you think,
Right.
Like, this wasn't some charmed, child actor to instant success story.
Right.
This was a woman with drive. Imagine being a young Maggie Smith, and you just know in your core, like, this is what I meant to do.
Right.
This is it. Only to have your own grandmother basically go, nah.
Right.
I mean, one of the biographies even went so far as to quote her grandmother saying, quote, "You can't be an actress with a face like that."
Wow.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. I mean, talk about tough. It makes you think, right? Like, wow, to start at 18, she even took a stage name initially.
Yeah.
Like, there's a story there. This wasn't some whimsical, like, oh, I'd like to be on stage. This was like, no, I need to be taken seriously as an artist, and this is how I'm going to do it.
And it's that hunger, I think, for the craft itself.
Yes.
That I think is important.
Totally.
And also not just the drive, but the woman had range. Okay.
Yes, she did.
Like, we're talking Shakespearean theater. We're talking musicals.
Yes.
There was even like a stint, like early on with stand-up comedy, like this is not something you just fall backwards into. No.
And you don't see that very often. And this is what I think her peers continually emphasize, is that commitment, One article I found had this great quote where they're talking about how she could go from radiance to melancholy in seconds.
Wow.
Like, literally seconds on stage.
See, this is what I love, because I think there is this, maybe it's because, those of us of a certain generation, we think Harry Potter, right?
Right.
Professor McGonagall.
Yep.
Very serious, very stoic.
Yes.
And so you see all these comments and people are connecting with her. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's all else she was. And it's like, no.
Right.
You start to scratch the surface a little bit. And these glimpses of her real personality, it's there.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's mentioning her dry wit, this ability to just deliver a line with this sort of like mischievous glint in her eye.
Right. Like, that she knows something you don't.
Absolutely. Like, it's McGonagall, but with like a secret twinkle.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I mean, one fan even wrote about how they saw her on stage and they were laughing so hard they hit their head on the seat in front of them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And this wasn't just some fluffy comedy routine. This was Dame Maggie bringing the house down with like this sharp wit and impeccable comedic timing.
Yeah.
And it made me think about that quote where she downplayed her work on Potter and Downton Abbey.
Yes.
Where she said it wasn't real acting, and always makes me wonder, like, well, what was real acting then?
Right.
Yeah.
What did she consider?
Yeah, exactly. What did she pour her heart and soul into?
Yeah. Yes. And that is what makes exploring a career like this so much more than just going, oh yeah, I loved her in this.
Yes.
It's like we're getting these glimpses behind the curtain, beyond these characters. Suddenly, she's not a name. She's a person.
A complex, fascinating person.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to get into all of that right after this.
Yeah.
It's funny, right? Because we talk about this range, but then she also had this ability to make you laugh out loud with just a single word.
Oh, absolutely.
Often delivered with that very specific kind of like aristocratic air that she had.
It's that blend, right?
Yeah.
Of like that gravitas and that wit that just makes her so captivating,
Speaking of captivating, tell me you haven't done the What is a Weekend in your best Dowager Countess. Come on.
Oh my gosh, all the time. Are you kidding me?
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's practically transcended Downton Abbey at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, from your perspective, like what is it about that delivery, that one line that just works on every level?
Because it works on so many levels. Like on the surface, it's hilarious, right? It's this hilarious quip. It's this peek into like this out of touch world that is just so funny. But then there's this whole other layer to it, which is this commentary on class and just this gap between the people who, you know, have to work and the people who don't. And she delivers it with this perfect blend of bewilderment and disdain. And it just sings. You know what I mean?
It's like she's in on the joke.
Yes.
But also making a very salient point.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, that's such a rare gift to be able to make a statement and make someone laugh at the same time. You know what I mean? And you see that throughout her career, not even just in the comedic roles. It's like, it's there.
Well, and that's what I love too, is, you know, you go through and you look at these lists.
Oh.
And even for me, and I'd like to say, you know, I know my way around a movie database. I was going through fan comments earlier, and the amount of stuff like The Secret Garden, Tea with Mussolini, Keeping Mum, I'd never even heard of it. And this woman was a workhorse.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she worked constantly.
It's amazing, and it's so exciting. It's like a whole treasure trove of things to go back and watch.
Yes.
And what I love that I'm seeing is that a lot of these lesser-known performances are the ones that are being highlighted as like, oh, but this one, if you really want to see her shine, go watch this one.
And I love that. Go beyond the 5 things that everybody knows, right? Go explore those gems. I think that's so cool.
Yes.
And, you know, it really struck me, looking at all these different sources, everyone uses that same phrase.
Right.
One of the greats. One of the greats.
It's true, though.
Oh, she was. But I think sometimes it's like, how do we move beyond just the sentimentality, right? And like the, you know, the loss of this amazing, amazing person, and really unpack like what earns you that title.
Right, because it's more than just talent, right?
Yeah.
It's impact. It's what she did with it. And it was just one of the articles I was reading, you know, they're interviewing all these different actors, and one of them said, she's irreplaceable.
Yes.
And it clicked for me, because she is like, you can't replace Dame Maggie Smith. Like, there's no one else who can command a scene, deliver a line, break your heart, all in like the span of a film.
That's what makes you one of the greats.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Hold that thought, though. We have more to get into right after this.
Right.
It really is true, though. Irreplaceable. Nobody can do what she did the way that she did it. But I think what I love, too, is like, that's what's so great about taking a deep dive like this, right? It gives you a starting point.
Yes.
You know, you don't have to take our word for it. You don't have to take anybody's word for it. Go back, watch these performances.
Exactly. Watch them again. Watch them for the first time.
See the range.
Yeah.
See that depth.
And, you know, that, to me, is the best way to honor an artist like this. It's not to mourn, but to celebrate.
Yes.
By engaging with what they left behind. So those performances, they're out there.
They're waiting.
Waiting to be discovered, rediscovered.
So go watch something. I think that's my big takeaway here. This is your permission slip, all right? If you needed it, put down the remote, step away from the same 5 things you're always watching. Go find that film. Go find that play that you've never seen. You might just discover your new favorite Dame Maggie Smith performance.
Yeah.
And honestly, how cool is that?
And I think it's also worth noting, you know, this is, while it's a loss and it's sad, it's also this really, I think, potent reminder that every legend, every icon we put on a pedestal, they were all at one point up-and-coming artists.
That's such a good point.
Taking risks, you know, honing their craft, pushing boundaries. So, you know, go out there, seek out the artists you find compelling today. The ones that make you think, the ones that make you feel, because that's how we keep that legacy alive.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you to explore. Dame Maggie Smith, thank you for the magic, for the laughter, and for the inspiration. We'll be seeing you on our screens for years to come.